Hello everyone and welcome back to another album review, and in this video I'm going to review How I'm Feeling Now by Charli XCX. I was definitely skeptical getting to this album because it is less than a year since we had her previous work Charli, which was an album that furtherly embraced the sound she was building up for the past couple of years with this more future pop direction with the previous two mixtapes like Number One Angel and Pop 2, and also with the massive success of the revolutionary sound of the Vroom Vroom EP. Charli with those releases definitely paved the path for a different and more futuristic approach on the pop sound, being one of those artists that paved a new era of pop music, and all of the risks she has taken with all of those releases ended up having a great result in my opinion, and for lots of people as well, since her influence is something that you see further and further as the years pass by with lots of up and coming or not pop artists, and it was definitely apparent that Charli would not change that direction anytime soon. So I was definitely knew what to expect from How I'm Feeling Now. Now this is a quarantine special album made exactly for this occasion. When other artists postpone or delay their releases, Charli took this situation as a result in order to make an album, just having a more emotional stance of what it feels to be distanced from someone and how emotions like love and care feel even more stronger when situations get tough, which is something that I'm really into, and I would definitely have high hopes for an album like this. However, the one concern I had when I knew that this album was going to be released is that it was probably going to be rushed. This is because, like I said, there's not that much time since the release of her previous album, which had a massive success. It went really well in the public, and this album was an idea that was in the making just after the release of her previous album. Instead, this is in the works for like the past couple of 1 or 2 months or so, and so there were definitely lots of things that could have gone really wrong with this album. However, I was pleasantly surprised when I listened to the singles of this thing, since I think that Charli actually provided some of the best tracks she has written ever in her entire career. Her producers behind those tracks made an amazing job in my opinion in some of those cuts. And talking about the singles over here, I'm in love with Forever. I think it's an amazing first single, and I would also say that it's possibly the most emotional track Charli has ever written. It has such a sad and melancholic melody to it, and I like the raw emotions portrayed with such a smooth vocal delivery, but also with a beat that has some very aggressive distorted elements. I also like this whole idea with the video clip and with the singles as well, since throughout the release of these singles before the actual release of the album, she could constantly just make numerous posts where she would basically make this feel as a collective work with all of her fans, giving them a highly supported role throughout this whole process, and especially with tough situations like this, with all of those hard times, because other artists, especially when they're that big, this is not something you easily see, with all of the multiple Zoom calls, all of the polls you would make, the sort of like fan arts, the multiple illustrations you get with each one of the singles just being put in multiple different covers, and it made for a work that felt like an actual sort of an interactive project, which even with like the first track Forever, it gave me the impression that we're actually going to talk about an album that would feel getting the closest to what the fans request rather than what a label requests, which also gave me the impression that we're possibly going to talk about her most futuristic and her most sort of experimental project so far, which is something that was definitely the case with Forever and with its amazing instrumental. Now the track, in my opinion, when it comes to the pacing, it drags at the last minute a bit more than what I would like, but it's still a really well balanced song. But where I got a perfectly paced track and just being straightforward, it was with the track Close. I love this song. I think that it's amazing from start to finish. I like the chorus to it. I think even the auto-tune vocals work really well in favor of this song. The instrumental has lots of different portions. It is very well done, and in my opinion it makes for some of the greatest songs I've heard from Charli, like ever. The third single she released was I Finally Understand, which was definitely the most laid back out of the three, and so it made for my least favorite single, but it was definitely a song that I loved. I really like this sort of drum and bass drum beat and slow tempo to it. It also has a very well done chorus and some nice experimental and futuristic portions throughout this whole thing. So after being amazed by all of those three singles, I was definitely expecting something big from this album, and watching this being only 11 tracks and being one of the shortest projects she has, I was definitely happy and I was really anticipating to listen to the whole thing. So getting into this full album, I have to say that it could have been even better in my opinion, but this is still one of the greater and one of my personal favorite projects from Charli. As far as it has multiple elements that you can find in her previous works in this whole new era of Charli, this is possibly the more experimental and the more futuristic one so far. And some of my favorite moments in this album come with some of the more heavy, more punchy and more energetic songs. Like with the introduction, Pink Diamond, I really liked this introduction. It is a song I wanted from this album. I really like the beat to it. I like how aggressive it is. I like this sort of nasty delivery from Charli, and I like how in such a short period of time it goes into multiple different portions with also such a great pace and transitions to it. I like the synths to this thing. I like the really aggressive beat. It definitely has a post-industrial feel, like I'm listening to a Sophie project. So yeah, Pink Diamond is really well done. And the other song I really love on this album is Anthems, which is also one of the very energetic tracks. I like those acid synths that give a 90s aesthetic to them, and it is one of the greater punchy and energetic songs. I especially like the production on this one in particular. I think it's one of the best sounding Charli XCX songs. Even the auto-tune vocals work fascinatingly well, and I love the chorus to this thing. But that's pretty much all about the highlights of this album. So if you count out the three main singles and if you count out the other two tracks that I really enjoyed, the rest of the album has some moments that were kind of weak actually. The other moments that I would say I enjoyed quite a lot were the tracks Enemy. I think it's one of the better laid back tracks and I like the beat to it. It is definitely one of the catchier and one of the more memorable moments in the album. And there is also the track Visions, which has lots of different portions to it, and especially towards the end it gets really pumped up, really energetic, with a sort of old school approach on trance music but with very well done futuristic production. And it's also one of those songs that in my opinion drags a little bit more towards the second half because it is just a big instrumental portion, which is the same thing with sort of like with Forever. But getting through the rest of the album, there are some of those elements that I didn't really enjoy from some of the previous works from Charli as well. a big example is with some of the obnoxious auto-tune vocals, especially with examples like C 2.0. I especially don't like the vocals on this thing at all. I think after a while they get pretty annoying, and even if it's one of the more experimental and out there cuts, it's just a big mess. Charli has experimental portions, but at least there is like a smooth sort of approach and pacing throughout them. This track on the other hand doesn't really make any sense. 7 Years feels like a weaker laid back copy of Close. Then there's the track Detonate, which is one of the more forgettable Charli XCX songs in my opinion, and Party For You is basically like separated in two portions, and I think it's just kind of decent. But despite some weak moments here and there, yeah, this album had the potential to be even better, but still I'm pretty pleased with this result. This is one of my favorite projects from Charli XCX, and I basically like how she approaches and embraces internet culture with like all of the people and also everyone else who worked throughout this album, the producers, etc. It makes it much more of an interactive experience, feeling a part of it, and I think that's pretty wholesome, and I'm looking forward to more like this futuristic approach of Charli XCX in the future. I'm going to give How I'm Feeling Now a 7 plus out of 10. What's your opinion on this album? Like it, dislike it, why, and what do you want me to review next time? Let me know down in the comments. Leave a like if you enjoyed the video, subscribe for more content like this. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video. Goodbye.